You walk into a room filled with people, yet somehow you still feel like the stranger. The conversations are happening around you, the laughter is genuine, the connections seem effortless for everyone else, and yet there is a quiet feeling inside that whispers that you do not fully belong there. It is a feeling that has followed you through different seasons of life, different cities, different jobs, different friendships, different environments, and somehow the experience remains the same. You adapt, you smile, you participate, you do your best to connect. But deep inside, there is often a sense that everyone else received a map that you never got. If this feeling has followed you for years, there is a good chance that you have spent countless nights wondering what is wrong with you. You may have blamed yourself. You may have believed that you were too sensitive, too different, too quiet, too thoughtful, or simply too difficult for others to understand. You may have watched people form bonds effortlessly while you struggled to find the same depth of connection. You may have carried the painful belief that if you were somehow different, people would finally understand you, appreciate you, or make room for you. But what if the feeling of being out of place is not evidence that something is wrong with you? What if it is evidence that there is something within you that was never meant to be shaped entirely by the expectations around you? Some people spend their entire lives becoming whatever the environment demands. They learn how to fit in. They learn how to blend in. They learn how to avoid standing out. Yet there are others who seem unable to do that no matter how hard they try. They carry a different perspective. They notice things others overlook. They feel deeply. They think deeply. They question things that others accept without hesitation. They search for meaning when others are satisfied with surface-level explanations. These people often experience life differently. And because they experience life differently, they often feel different wherever they go. The chosen often carry this burden quietly. They are not necessarily louder than others. They are not necessarily more talented than others. They are not necessarily more successful than others. But there is often an awareness inside them that refuses to settle for what feels empty. They crave authenticity. They long for genuine connection. They want conversations that reach beyond appearances. They want relationships built on truth rather than convenience. They seek purpose instead of distraction. Because of this, many environments feel incomplete to them. They can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. They can be appreciated and still feel unseen. They can be included and still feel disconnected. This experience creates a unique kind of exhaustion. It is not the exhaustion that comes from physical labor. It is the exhaustion that comes from carrying invisible emotions for years. It is the exhaustion of constantly wondering where you belong. It is the exhaustion of repeatedly opening your heart only to discover that others do not understand what you carry inside. You carried burdens that few people ever noticed. There were seasons when you smiled while fighting battles nobody knew existed. There were moments when you encouraged others while desperately needing encouragement yourself. There were times when you felt forgotten, overlooked, and invisible. Yet somehow you kept moving forward. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. Many of your greatest victories happened in silence. Nobody applauded when you survived another difficult day. Nobody celebrated the nights when you chose hope instead of giving up. Nobody saw the private prayers, the hidden tears, the quiet determination that carried you through moments when your heart felt heavy. But those victories mattered. They shaped you. They strengthened you. They became part of the person you are today. Sometimes God allows certain seasons of isolation not to punish you, but to develop qualities that can only grow in quiet places. Strength grows differently when nobody is cheering. Faith grows differently when answers do not arrive immediately. Character grows differently when recognition is absent. The seasons that tested you were also shaping who you were becoming. Looking back, you may realize that some of your deepest wisdom was born from your most difficult experiences. The moments that made you feel abandoned often taught you resilience. The disappointments that broke your expectations often revealed hidden strength. The loneliness that felt unbearable sometimes created a deeper connection with your own heart and with God. None of that means the pain was easy. None of that means the loneliness was pleasant, but it does mean that your suffering was not meaningless. Not every battle you fought was in vain. Many of the struggles that made you feel out of place were quietly preparing you for a deeper understanding of yourself. There are people who have always felt comfortable following the crowd. There are people who have always felt secure doing what everyone else was doing. But you may have noticed that your path often feels different. You may have found yourself questioning directions that others accepted without reflection. You may have felt uncomfortable in environments where people ignored values that mattered deeply to you. You may have walked away from places that seemed acceptable to everyone else because something inside you knew you could not stay. That inner conviction can make life harder. It can also make life more meaningful. One of the hardest truths for the chosen to accept is that belonging does not always come from fitting in. True belonging often comes from becoming fully yourself. The world frequently teaches people to earn acceptance by changing who they are, but lasting peace is rarely found through constant self-betrayal. Peace is found when you stop measuring your worth by the approval of people who cannot see your heart. Your value has never been determined by how many people understood you. Your worth has never been determined by how easily you fit into a particular group. Your significance has never depended on recognition. You are worth far more than the moments that tried to make you feel small. There is something powerful about reaching the point where you stop apologizing for being different. Not arrogant, not superior, simply honest. Honest about who you are, honest about what matters to you, honest about the journey you have walked, honest about the lessons your struggles have taught you. When you reach that place, something begins to change. The loneliness may not disappear overnight. The feeling of being misunderstood may still appear from time to time, but it no longer defines you. Instead of seeing your differences as flaws, you begin to recognize them as part of your story. Instead of viewing your unique path as evidence of failure, you begin to understand that your journey was never supposed to look exactly like everyone else's. Your kindness cost you more than most people will ever understand. You chose compassion when bitterness would have been easier. You chose patience when frustration felt justified. You chose faith when circumstances gave you reasons to doubt. Those choices mattered. They continue to matter. Even when nobody noticed, those choices were shaping your character. God saw the tears that nobody else noticed. God saw the disappointments you never talked about. God saw the prayers you whispered when nobody was listening. God saw every moment when you felt like giving up, but chose to keep going. The world may not have understood your journey, but heaven never lost sight of it. Sometimes the greatest comfort comes from realizing that being different is not the same as being forgotten. Feeling out of place is not proof that you have no purpose. Experiencing loneliness is not evidence that your story is over. In many cases, it simply means that your journey is unfolding differently than you expected. There is still beauty ahead. There is still healing ahead. There are still meaningful connections ahead. There are still moments waiting for you that will help many of the painful pieces finally make sense. Your story has value, even if it did not unfold the way you expected. The chapters that felt confusing are not the entire story. The seasons that felt empty are not the final destination. The disappointments that wounded you are not the ultimate definition of your life. There is a quiet strength within you that has survived every storm so far. There is a resilience inside you that continues to rise after every setback. There is a purpose within you that remains intact even when circumstances feel uncertain. And perhaps the reason you have felt out of place in so many environments is because your deepest belonging was never meant to come from the approval of the crowd. Perhaps it was always meant to come from understanding who you are, embracing the value God placed within you, and walking forward with confidence even when the path feels different from everyone else's. If this message spoke to your heart and reminded you that your differences do not diminish your worth, subscribe to the channel and continue this journey of faith, healing, purpose, and encouragement with us. Sometimes the reminders we need most arrive when we are feeling unseen, and there may be more messages ahead that help you recognize the strength and value that have been within you all along. There comes a moment in the life of many chosen people when they stop expecting every room to feel like home. That realization does not arrive because they become cold or detached. It arrives because experience teaches them that not every place is designed to nurture what God placed within them. For years, many people who feel out of place carry an invisible burden. They walk into new opportunities with hope. They meet new people with optimism. They tell themselves that perhaps this time will be different. Perhaps this group will understand them. Perhaps this environment will finally feel natural. Perhaps this season will bring the sense of belonging they have searched for throughout their lives. Yet time passes, and the familiar feeling often returns. They participate, contribute, support, encourage, and give their best. But somewhere inside, they still feel like observers watching life unfold from a distance. If this has happened repeatedly throughout your life, it can create wounds that few people understand. It can make you question your identity. It can make you wonder whether you are asking for too much. It can make you wonder whether genuine connection is something reserved for everyone except you. Over time, disappointment can become a companion. You stop expecting people to understand your heart. You stop explaining your deeper thoughts because previous attempts left you feeling dismissed. You learn how to function while carrying emotions that remain largely unseen. Outwardly, life continues. Inwardly, there is often a quiet ache that never seems to completely disappear. Yet hidden within that ache is an important truth. The very sensitivity that causes you pain is often the same sensitivity that allows you to love deeply, serve faithfully, and notice needs that others overlook. The same heart that feels disappointment intensely is often the heart capable of extraordinary compassion. The same person who feels out of place is often the person who makes others feel welcome. The same individual who struggles to find understanding frequently becomes a source of understanding for everyone around them. This is one of the great paradoxes of the chosen journey. The people who know loneliness often become experts at offering comfort. The people who know rejection often become careful not to reject others. The people who know emotional pain often develop remarkable empathy. Their wounds become sources of wisdom. Their struggles become sources of strength. Their disappointments become lessons that help them encourage others who are facing similar battles. You may not always recognize this in yourself because you are too close to your own story. You remember the failures. You remember the losses. You remember the moments when your confidence collapsed and your faith felt weak. But if you step back and look honestly at your journey, you may discover evidence of growth everywhere. The version of you that exists today is stronger than the person who first entered those difficult seasons. The person you have become carries lessons that could only be learned through experience. There is a depth within you that was forged through endurance. There is a wisdom within you that was refined through hardship. There is a resilience within you that was built one difficult day at a time. The world often celebrates visible victories, promotions, awards, wealth, recognition, public success. But some of the most meaningful victories cannot be photographed or displayed. They happen quietly. They happen when someone chooses forgiveness after being hurt. They happen when someone continues believing despite disappointment. They happen when someone remains kind after being treated unfairly. They happen when someone chooses faith during uncertainty. Some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. You may not have received applause for those moments, but they mattered deeply. Every time you chose integrity over convenience, something valuable was strengthened within you. Every time you chose hope over despair, your spirit grew stronger. Every time you continued moving forward despite feeling out of place, you proved that your circumstances did not control your identity. One reason the chosen often feel disconnected from certain environments is because their hearts are searching for something deeper than acceptance. They are searching for meaning. Surface-level success rarely satisfies them for long. Temporary validation rarely fills the emptiness. They often desire a sense of purpose that reaches beyond appearances. They want their lives to matter. They want their relationships to be genuine. They want their work to have significance. They want their faith to be real. Because of this, ordinary environments sometimes feel insufficient. Conversations that revolve entirely around appearances can leave them empty. Relationships built only on convenience can leave them unfulfilled. Pursuits driven only by status can leave them restless. They long for something more substantial. They long for truth, authenticity, and purpose. This longing can create frustration because it separates them from many of the things that satisfy others. Yet that longing is not a flaw. It is often evidence of a deeper calling toward growth and meaning. God frequently places desires within people that point them toward their future. The longing for purpose often precedes purpose. The longing for healing often precedes healing. The longing for belonging often precedes the discovery of where one truly belongs. The challenge is remaining faithful during the waiting season. Waiting can be difficult because uncertainty creates fear. Human beings naturally want answers. They want timelines, they want guarantees. Yet life rarely unfolds according to our preferred schedule. Many chosen people spend years in seasons they never expected. Years of unanswered questions, years of feeling misunderstood, years of carrying responsibilities that nobody notices, years of wondering whether their sacrifices matter. But what feels like delay is not always denial. Sometimes preparation takes longer than expected, because what is being built inside you is more important than what is happening around you. Consider how much of your strength was developed during seasons you never would have chosen. Consider how much wisdom emerged from situations you wanted to escape. Consider how many lessons came from disappointments that initially felt meaningless. The seasons that tested you were also shaping who you were becoming. Looking back, many people eventually discover that their greatest growth happened during periods they once considered wasted. They discover that God was working quietly beneath the surface. They discover that resilience was developing, character was deepening, faith was strengthening, understanding was expanding. The process was uncomfortable, but it was not empty. This realization changes how you view your story. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who never fit in, you begin to see yourself as someone who was being shaped differently. Instead of viewing every rejection as proof of inadequacy, you begin to recognize that some doors closed because they were never meant to define your future. Instead of measuring your worth through external approval, you begin to understand that your value existed long before anyone recognized it. Your story is not a collection of random disappointments. It is a journey filled with lessons, growth, and evidence of God's presence even in difficult moments. God has not forgotten you. The fact that your path feels different does not mean you have been abandoned. The fact that you have faced loneliness does not mean you are destined to remain lonely. The fact that others failed to understand you does not mean you are impossible to understand. Sometimes it simply means that your journey is still unfolding. There are people you have not met yet. There are opportunities you have not seen yet. There are blessings you have not experienced yet. There are chapters of your story that have not been written yet. Hope becomes powerful when you remember that your current circumstances are not the final chapter. The disappointment you feel today does not have unlimited authority over your future. The loneliness you feel today does not have the final word. The confusion you feel today does not determine where your story ends. Your life contains possibilities that remain invisible from your current position. There is a strength within you that kept moving forward even on your darkest days. That strength is still there. The same perseverance that carried you through previous storms can carry you through this season as well. The same faith that survived earlier disappointments can sustain you now. The same resilience that helped you rise before can help you rise again. You are far stronger than many of the experiences that tried to convince you otherwise. If you have spent years feeling out of place, remember this. Being different does not make you less valuable. Being misunderstood does not make you less worthy of love. Being overlooked does not reduce your significance. Your identity is not determined by the people who failed to see your value. Your worth remains intact. Your purpose remains intact. Your future remains intact. Even in seasons when you feel unseen, your life matters. Even in seasons when you feel disconnected, your story matters. Even in seasons when you feel forgotten, your faithfulness matters. And one day, many of the pieces that currently seem confusing may reveal a purpose that was present all along. If these words brought comfort to your heart and reminded you that your journey still holds meaning, subscribe to the channel so we can continue walking together through messages of faith, healing, resilience, and personal growth. Sometimes encouragement becomes a light during difficult seasons, and perhaps the next message will meet you exactly where you need it most. One of the most healing moments in the life of a chosen person often arrives when they stop treating their differences as a problem that needs to be fixed. For years, many people carry the belief that if they could only become more like everyone else, life would finally make sense. They imagine that happiness exists on the other side of conformity. They believe peace will arrive once they learn how to blend in, stay quiet about what matters to them, suppress their deeper thoughts, and ignore the parts of themselves that seem different from those around them. But eventually, something begins to change. The endless effort to fit into places that never felt right becomes exhausting. The constant need to shrink, adapt, and explain yourself becomes heavy. The search for approval becomes less important than the search for authenticity. Little by little, a new understanding emerges. You begin to realize that many of the qualities that made you feel out of place are the same qualities that carried you through your hardest seasons. The sensitivity you once viewed as weakness allowed you to care deeply when others became indifferent. The thoughtfulness you once tried to hide helped you make wise decisions during difficult moments. The faith you maintained during uncertainty gave you strength when circumstances offered none. The compassion you extended to others created healing that you may never fully measure. Suddenly, what once felt like evidence that you did not belong begins to look more like evidence that your path was unique. This realization does not eliminate every struggle. There will still be days when loneliness appears. There will still be moments when you feel misunderstood. There will still be environments where your spirit feels disconnected from what surrounds you, but those experiences no longer carry the same power they once had. They no longer convince you that something is wrong with you. Instead, they remind you that not every environment is meant to define you. Some places are temporary. Some relationships are temporary. Some seasons are temporary. Your identity is not. Many people spend their lives trying to earn a sense of worth that already belongs to them. They chase recognition, approval, and validation, hoping these things will finally quiet the insecurity within. Yet no amount of external affirmation can permanently satisfy a heart that has forgotten its value. True peace begins when you understand that your worth was never dependent on public recognition. It was never dependent on popularity. It was never dependent on fitting perfectly into every room you entered. Your worth existed before anyone applauded you. Your worth existed before anyone believed in you. Your worth existed before anyone understood you. You are valuable because of who you are, not because of how others respond to you. This truth becomes especially important for people who have spent years feeling out of place. When you constantly feel different, it is easy to assume that your differences reduce your value. But often the opposite is true. The qualities that separate you from the crowd may be the very qualities that allow you to fulfill a unique purpose. The world needs people who think differently. The world needs people who remain kind in difficult situations. The world needs people who care deeply. The world needs people who refuse to abandon their principles for temporary acceptance. The world needs people whose faith remains steady, even when life becomes uncertain. You may never fully understand how many lives you have already impacted. There were likely moments when your encouragement arrived exactly when someone needed it. There were likely conversations that provided hope to a struggling person. There were likely acts of kindness that left a deeper impression than you realized. Many of the most meaningful contributions people make are invisible. They are not recorded in headlines. They are not celebrated publicly. Yet they matter profoundly. The chosen often underestimate their influence because they focus on what they have lost instead of what they have given. They remember rejection, but overlook resilience. They remember loneliness, but overlook growth. They remember disappointment, but overlook the wisdom those experiences produced. Take a moment to consider everything you have survived. Consider the seasons when you felt overwhelmed, but kept moving forward anyway. Consider the disappointments that could have made you bitter, but instead made you wiser. Consider the moments when your faith was tested, and yet somehow remained alive. Consider the tears that nobody saw and the prayers that nobody heard. God saw them. God saw every silent battle. God saw every moment of perseverance. God saw every act of faithfulness. God saw every time you chose hope when despair seemed easier. Sometimes people imagine that purpose arrives through dramatic events. They expect a single moment that explains everything. But purpose is often revealed gradually. It unfolds through ordinary days. It develops through faithful decisions. It grows through perseverance. It becomes visible through consistency. The person you are becoming is being shaped by countless moments that may seem small today. Every act of patience matters. Every act of kindness matters. Every act of courage matters. Every step forward matters. Even when progress feels slow, growth is taking place. Even when answers feel distant, preparation is taking place. Even when you feel out of place, transformation is taking place. The future has a way of revealing meaning that was hidden during difficult seasons. Many people eventually look back and realize that what felt like isolation taught them self-awareness. What felt like rejection protected them from paths that were never meant for them. What felt like delay gave them time to develop the strength needed for future opportunities. What felt like confusion created wisdom that later became invaluable. Life often makes more sense looking backward than looking forward. Yet faith allows you to continue moving even when complete understanding is unavailable. Faith is not the absence of uncertainty. Faith is the decision to keep walking despite uncertainty. It is the willingness to trust that your story contains purpose even when you cannot yet see the full picture. It is the belief that difficult seasons do not have unlimited authority over your future. It is the confidence that God continues working even when circumstances appear quiet. If you have spent much of your life feeling out of place, perhaps this season is inviting you to see yourself differently. Perhaps you are not broken. Perhaps you are not forgotten. Perhaps you are not destined to remain disconnected forever. Perhaps you have simply been traveling a path that required different lessons, different growth and different preparation. There is nothing insignificant about the journey you have walked. The sacrifices mattered. The patience mattered. The endurance mattered. The tears mattered. The prayers mattered. The lessons mattered. The growth mattered. Your story matters. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. The fact that your heart remains capable of kindness says more about your character than you realize. The fact that you continue seeking meaning, purpose, and faith despite everything you have experienced says more about your resilience than you realize. You have already survived days that once seemed impossible. You have already overcome challenges that once felt overwhelming. You have already demonstrated strength that you sometimes fail to recognize in yourself. Do not allow temporary feelings of being out of place to convince you that you are without value. Do not allow seasons of loneliness to convince you that you are destined to remain alone. Do not allow the failures of others to recognize your worth to determine how you see yourself. You are worth far more than the moments that tried to make you feel small. Your life contains meaning. Your journey contains purpose. Your future contains possibilities that have not yet been revealed. There is still healing ahead. There is still growth ahead. There is still joy ahead. There are still connections ahead. There are still blessings ahead. God has not forgotten your name. God has not overlooked your sacrifices. God has not ignored your prayers. The same God who carried you through every previous season remains present today. And while you may have spent years feeling out of place in this world, there is a deeper truth that remains. You were never created to be a copy of anyone else. You were created with unique gifts, unique experiences, unique strengths, and a unique purpose. The very things that made you feel different may one day become the things you appreciate most about yourself. If this message helped you feel seen, understood, and encouraged, subscribe to the channel and continue joining us for messages that strengthen faith, nurture healing, encourage personal growth, and remind you that your journey has meaning. You do not have to walk every difficult season alone, and there may be future messages that bring exactly the encouragement your heart needs along the way.